The wind screamed across the frozen mountains. The snow fell heavy, covering the land in white. Ethan pulled his jacket tighter, but it was useless against the biting cold. His boots sank deep into the snow with every step, and his breath came out in sharp clouds. He had been walking for hours with no sign of shelter. His body shook, his fingers numb. He knew if he did not find a place soon, he would not survive the night. The storm grew stronger, and the path ahead was almost gone under the snow. Every step felt like a battle. His legs burned, his chest ached, and still he pushed forward. Then, through the white haze, he saw it, a faint glow, weak but steady. It flickered from the side of a mountain wall. Ethan forced himself to move faster. His heart pounded with both fear and hope. Maybe it was a fire. Maybe it was just a trick of his frozen eyes, but he had no choice. When he reached the mountain wall, he found an opening, a cave mouth hidden by fallen snow and stone. From inside, the faint glow shone like a beacon. Ethan hesitated. He knew caves could hide dangerous beasts, but outside the storm promised death. With shaking hands, he pushed through the snow and stepped inside. Warmth hit him first, not much, but enough to sting his frozen skin. The glow came from a crystal, pulsing like a living heart, and then he saw her. A figure huddled near the crystal, wrapped in torn cloth. Her skin shimmered faintly under the strange light. Her hair silver like moonlight, and her eyes glowed faint blue. Ethan froze. It was not a human, she was an alien. Her gaze lifted slowly, tired but sharp. For a moment they only stared at each other, the sound of the storm outside filling the silence. Ethan felt his hand reach for his knife, but he stopped himself. She looked weak, not threatening. Her lips moved, and a soft voice broke the stillness. "Stay close, human, or we both die." Her words shocked him, not because she spoke his language, but because of the calm in her voice. She did not seem afraid of him. She spoke as if she had been waiting for him. Ethan stayed where he was, unsure. The cold from outside still clung to him. His body begged for warmth. He looked at her fire crystal and then at her. Her hands trembled as she held it close. He could see the frost forming on her skin. She was freezing just like him. Slowly, carefully, Ethan lowered himself to the ground near the crystal. The heat spread through his body. Weak but life-saving, he let out a breath of relief. For the first time in hours, he could feel his fingers again. The alien girl shifted, pulling the crystal a little closer to her chest. She eyed him with suspicion. Her blue eyes glowed brighter in the dark. Ethan broke the silence, his voice hoarse. "You alone here?" She gave no answer, only silence. Her eyes stayed fixed on him. Ethan tried again. "I will not hurt you." Her gaze softened slightly. She looked away and whispered something under her breath. He could not hear it. The storm roared louder outside. The cave shook with the force of the wind. Ethan felt the truth settle in his heart. He had no choice. They were trapped together. Two strangers in the frozen night, one human, one alien. Minutes passed. The fire crystal glowed and pulsed, casting long shadows on the cave walls. Ethan studied her when she was not looking. Her clothes were torn, her skin marked with old scars. She was not just lost in the storm. She had a story, one written in pain. The silence stretched long. Ethan pulled his bag close and took out a small pack of dried rations. He placed them gently on the ground between them. The girl's eyes flickered to the food. Her lips parted slightly, but she did not move. Ethan pushed it a little closer. "Eat," he said quietly. At first she did not trust him. Her hands stayed curled around the glowing crystal. But hunger broke through her fear. Slowly she reached out, took the food and ate in silence. Ethan looked away, giving her the dignity she deserved. The storm howled outside. The night grew darker. In the faint glow of the fire crystal, two lives now shared the same fragile space. Ethan leaned back against the cave wall, exhaustion pulling him down. His eyes closed slowly, but his hand stayed near his knife. The alien girl sat across from him, still clutching the crystal. Her glowing eyes stayed open. Watching him, her lips moved softly, whispering words he did not understand. And then, just before sleep claimed him, Ethan felt her voice cut through the storm. "You should know, human. By sharing fire, you have bound yourself to me." Ethan's eyes opened wide. His heart froze colder than the storm outside. He did not yet understand what her words meant. But he knew this night was only the beginning. The storm outside did not end. It screamed louder through the night, shaking the cave walls as if the mountain itself wanted to crush them. Ethan sat near the glowing fire crystal, still shivering under his thin jacket. Across from him, the alien girl watched him with unblinking blue eyes. Her body curled tight around the warmth. Hours passed in silence. Ethan tried to rest, but her steady gaze kept him uneasy. She had warned him that sharing fire meant something more, something he did not understand. Her voice echoed in his mind. Bound to me. The words made his heart heavy. What did it mean to be bound to a stranger? A being not even from his world. Finally, he broke the silence. What's your name? The girl tilted her head, studying him. Her silver hair fell across her glowing skin. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then in a soft voice, she whispered, Lyra? Lyra, Ethan repeated, tasting the sound. It felt strange, yet beautiful. She blinked, as if surprised to hear her own name spoken by a human. And you? She asked after a pause. Ethan, he answered. His voice was rough. I was traveling alone when the storm caught me. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Alone? That is foolish. Ethan gave a tired laugh. Maybe, but I had no choice. She said nothing more. The fire crystal pulsed between them, casting long shadows. Hunger gnawed at Ethan's stomach. He had only a little food left. He reached into his bag and pulled out another ration pack. His hand shook as he tore it open. He broke it in half and placed one piece closer to her. She stared at it, her glowing eyes full of doubt. Why do you share? She asked sharply. Because you need it more than I do, Ethan replied simply. Her lips pressed tight. For a moment he thought she would refuse. But then she reached out, her hand trembling. Her fingers brushed his as she took the food. Her skin was warmer than he expected. They ate in silence, only the crunch of dried food breaking the roar of the storm. Ethan noticed the way she tried to chew slowly, as if stretching every bite. She had been starving for longer than she wanted to admit. After they finished, Ethan leaned back against the wall. Where are you from? He asked gently. Her eyes turned away, sadness flickering in them. Far, she whispered. Too far, I do not want to remember. Ethan did not push. He understood the weight of silence. He had his own memories he wished he could forget. The storm raged. The cave grew colder despite the crystal. Ethan shifted closer, his body seeking warmth. Lyra tensed when he moved, her hands clutching the crystal tighter. I'm not going to hurt you, Ethan said softly. She looked at him, her eyes sharp. Humans always say that, before they do hurt. Her words struck him. He wanted to argue, but he could see the truth of pain in her scars. She had lived through cruelty. He had no right to demand trust so soon. Still, their closeness was necessary. The cold crept into their bones. Slowly, Lyra let him sit nearer. The fire crystal's glow spread across them both, warming their shivering bodies. The uneasy company grew heavier. Ethan's thoughts wandered. He could not understand why fate had placed him here with her. Why in this endless storm had he found not just shelter, but another soul just as lost as him? Lyra broke the silence this time. Her voice was faint. Ethan, why did you not stay outside? You could have walked past this cave. You could have left me. Ethan frowned. Because you would have died. Her eyes narrowed. And why should that matter to you? Ethan thought about it. The answer was simple. Because life matters, doesn't matter whose life. Her lips parted, her expression shifting for the first time. The hardness in her eyes softened. She looked at him as if seeing something she had never seen before. But before either could speak further, a sound broke through the storm. Scratch, both froze. Ethan's hand moved to his knife. Lyra clutched the crystal. Another scratch, louder. It came from the cave entrance. A long shadow moved against the wall, stretching into their small circle of light. Lyra's face went pale. It followed us, she whispered. Ethan's heart raced. What followed us? She shook her head, her silver hair falling over her face. A night hunter, drawn by warmth, drawn by life. The scratching grew louder. Something heavy dragged against the rocks outside. The storm roared, but this sound cut through. The smell of something foul drifted in. Ethan crouched low, his knife ready. His breath came fast. He looked at Lyra. Do you have a weapon? Her glowing eyes flashed. She pulled something from her torn cloak, a small device that shimmered with alien light. I fight if I must, she whispered. The shadow loomed larger. The cave mouth darkened. Ethan tightened his grip. His pulse thundered in his ears. Two strangers, one human and one alien, trapped in the storm with something hunting them. Uneasy company had turned into uneasy survival. Hook ending. The first growl shook the cave, deep and hungry, and Ethan realized the storm was no longer their greatest threat. The growl rumbled deep and low, shaking the cave floor beneath them. Ethan felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. The storm outside was brutal, yet this sound was stronger than the wind. It was alive, hungry, and close. Lyra's glowing eyes narrowed. She pressed the crystal tighter against her chest, whispering words in a language Ethan did not know. Her voice trembled, not from the cold, but from fear. "The Night Hunter," she finally said. "It does not stop. It never stops." Ethan's knife felt small in his hand. His breath came out in quick bursts. He looked at the entrance where the shadow grew larger. A pair of glowing eyes appeared in the dark, too high, too wide apart to belong to any normal creature. The smell of rot filled the cave. The hunter scratched again, claws dragging long across stone. Sparks flew where the sharp talons cut rock. Ethan swallowed hard. He had survived wars, storms, and hunger. But this was something different. This was a predator that belonged to the dark. "Can we fight it?" Ethan whispered, his voice low. Lyra shook her head. "Not for long. Its skin is thick. It feels no blade. It hunts by heat. It will not leave while we breathe." Her words cut him deeper than the cold. He glanced at the fire crystal, its faint glow betraying them both. Without it, they would freeze. With it, they were prey. The hunter roared, the sound deafening. It moved closer, its massive body pressing against the rocks. Snow and dust fell from the cave ceiling. Ethan tightened his grip on the knife. His mind raced for a plan. Lyra reached into her torn cloak and pulled out her weapon. The device was small, glowing faint blue. Its hum filled the air with strange energy. She held it steady, though her hands trembled. "This can burn it but not kill. It will only anger." Ethan nodded. "Sometimes anger is enough." The shadow lunged. A massive clawed limb slashed through the opening. Stone cracked and scattered across the floor. The beast forced its way in, its head lowering, teeth long and dripping. Lyra fired first. A bolt of blue light shot from her weapon, striking the beast in the shoulder. The cave filled with the smell of burnt flesh, and the creature screamed. The sound was like thunder, shaking the walls. Ethan's ears rang. He threw himself forward, slashing his knife across the beast's hide. The blade barely cut, leaving only a shallow mark. The beast swung its claw, knocking Ethan off his feet. He crashed into the wall, pain shooting through his ribs. He gasped, trying to rise. Lyra fired again. Her weapon glowed brighter, burning the beast's leg. The creature roared and struck, claws tearing across the cave floor. The fire crystal wobbled and rolled, its light flickering dangerously. "Keep it away from the crystal," Lyra shouted. Ethan staggered to his feet. Blood in his mouth, he grabbed a broken rock and hurled it at the beast's head. The rock bounced uselessly, but it turned the monster's gaze. Giving Lyra another chance to fire, another bolt lit the cave. Burning deeper into its thick flesh, the beast screamed again, retreating slightly toward the entrance. Its glowing eyes locked on them, hatred burning for a moment. Ethan thought it would charge again. His chest heaved, his knife still ready. Lyra stood beside him, her weapon shaking from the energy it had used. But then the storm howled louder. A blast of wind rushed into the cave, the snow swirled thick. The beast hesitated, growled one last time, and slipped back into the storm. Its shadow vanished into the blinding white. Silence fell. Ethan dropped to his knees. Gasping, his body ached, his heart raced. He wiped the blood from his mouth and looked at Lyra. She was trembling, her face pale. Her hands clutched the weapon and the crystal like they were her only lifelines. Ethan crawled closer. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, but it will return." "They always return," Ethan frowned. "Then we'll be ready." Her eyes met his, full of disbelief. "You do not understand, human. No one survives a night hunter twice." The words cut deep. The fear in her voice was real. Ethan looked at the broken rocks, the cracked cave. The claw marks burned into the stone. He knew she was right, but he also knew one thing. "Then we don't wait for it to come back," he said. "We find a way out." Lyra's eyes widened, her lips parted as if to protest. But she said nothing. Outside, the storm roared, hiding dangers even worse than the hunter. Inside, the cave walls felt smaller, closing in. The uneasy company of two strangers had turned into a fragile alliance. The night was not over. Their fight for survival had only just begun. Hook ending. Ethan pressed his hand against the cold cave wall, listening to the storm, and whispered, Tomorrow, if we live to see it. Everything changes. The cave was quiet again, but the silence was heavy. Ethan leaned back against the wall, his chest rising fast. The night hunter's roar still echoed in his ears. His ribs ached from the hit and blood dried at the corner of his mouth. He closed his eyes for a moment, only to feel the cold pressing in. Lyra sat opposite him, clutching both the crystal and her weapon. Her glowing blue eyes flickered with fear and exhaustion. The storm outside had not ended, but inside the cave something else had changed. They were no longer just strangers. They had fought together. Ethan broke the silence, his voice hoarse. "That thing could have killed us both." Lyra's lips pressed tight. She nodded. "It will return, they never give up." He studied her. The pale shimmer of her skin in the crystal's glow. She looked strong, but he could see the tremble in her hands. She was just as tired, just as cold, just as human in her weakness without thinking. Ethan pulled the blanket from his pack. It was thin, torn at the edges, but it was all he had. He tossed it across the floor toward her. "Take it," she frowned, suspicion flashing in her eyes. "Why?" "Because you'll freeze without it," Ethan replied simply. For a long moment she didn't move, then slowly, she reached for it. Her fingers brushed the fabric, but instead of pulling it to herself, she spread it wide and placed it between them. Her voice was quiet. "We both need it." Ethan hesitated, but then moved closer. They sat shoulder to shoulder, the blanket draped across them both. The warmth was fragile, but it was enough to stop the cold from biting deeper. The fire crystal pulsed stronger as if responding to their closeness. Its glow spread brighter across the cave. Lyra glanced at him, her voice low. "You risked your life with only a blade." Ethan gave a tired laugh. "Didn't have much choice," she tilted her head, studying him. "Most humans would have run. Left me to die." "I'm not most humans," Ethan said. His words came out firm, her lips curved faintly. The ghost of a smile for the first time. Her eyes lost their sharp edge. She looked at him not with suspicion, but with curiosity. They sat in silence again. But it was different now, not heavy, not cold, it felt. Shared. Ethan reached into his pack again and pulled out the last of his dried food. He broke it in half without a word, handing one piece to her. She accepted this time without hesitation. She chewed slowly, her gaze never leaving his face. After a while she whispered, "Among my people. To share food and fire during a storm means something sacred." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Sacred?" She nodded. "It means lives are joined, no longer separate, no longer strangers." Her words made his chest tighten. He stared at the flickering light of the crystal. "That's what you meant earlier, when you said I was bound." "Yes," she whispered. "Bound by fire." Ethan tried to laugh it off, but the weight of her tone kept it from being a joke. "Sounds like a lot of responsibility for just one night." She looked at him seriously, her blue eyes glowing brighter. "One night is enough to change destiny." The words sank deep. He didn't know if it was her culture or just her belief, but he felt the truth of it. He thought of his lonely path, the endless silence of his journey before this night. And now in this frozen cave he was not alone outside. The wind howled like a monster. The storm clawed at the rocks, but inside, warmth grew, not just from the blanket or the crystal, but from something unspoken between them. Ethan leaned back, exhaustion pulling at his body. His shoulder brushed against hers under the blanket. She did not move away. Instead, she shifted slightly closer. Minutes stretched into hours. The storm showed no sign of ending. Ethan's eyelids grew heavy. He fought sleep, but his body betrayed him. His head tilted, resting against her shoulder. He jolted awake, embarrassed. "Sorry," he muttered. But Lyra shook her head. "Rest, human, I will keep watch." He looked at her, at the silver strands of her hair glowing in the light, at the strength in her tired eyes. Slowly he let himself relax, his eyes closed. The sound of the storm fading, Lyra whispered softly in her own tongue, words he could not understand. Her voice was gentle, almost like a song. She looked at the human sleeping beside her, his breath steady now, and for the first time in years, she felt something she thought was lost. Trust. Her fingers brushed the fire crystal. Its glow spread wider, as if feeding from the bond now formed. She closed her eyes, resting against him, and the cold night that had once promised death now carried something else. Hope hook-ending. Just before dawn, Lyra's voice drifted into the silence. "By fire we are bound, Ethan, and by morning, the bond cannot be broken." The storm raged outside through the night, but at last, the first light of dawn touched the cave mouth. Ethan opened his eyes slowly. His body ached from the fight, yet the warmth beside him reminded him he was still alive. Lyra sat awake, the fire crystal glowing in her lap. Her silver hair shimmered under its light. Her eyes were distant, filled with thoughts she had not shared. Ethan rubbed his face, his voice rough. "You didn't sleep?" She shook her head. "I cannot, not while danger still hunts." Ethan sat up, pulling the blanket tighter around his shoulders. "That thing won't give up, will it?" Lyra's gaze shifted to him. Her expression softened, but her words carried weight. "No, but that is not the only truth you must know. You asked me yesterday what it means to be bound today. You will hear the answer." Ethan frowned, his heartbeat quickening. "I'm listening." Lyra pressed the crystal against her chest. It pulsed faster, as though alive. "Among my people, fire is sacred in the frozen lands. Only those who trust share warmth. Only those who are ready to bind their lives sit together as we did. To share fire is to share destiny." Her words sank into him like stones in water. He stared at the glowing crystal. "So what you're saying is, we're joined now?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes. From this night forward, your path and mine cannot be separated, not without cost." Ethan's mouth went dry. He had survived countless dangers on his own. He was a man who trusted no one. Yet now an alien girl he had just met was telling him their fates were tied forever. He shook his head. "That's impossible." But Lyra's eyes burned with conviction. "It is truth, human. You feel it, do you not? The storm outside should have killed you. Yet here you breathe because we sat together. Because we shared fire." Ethan looked down. His hands trembled slightly. He remembered the warmth, the fragile comfort of her shoulder in the dark. He remembered how, for the first time in years, he had not felt alone. Lyra leaned closer, her voice softer now. "I was taught that fire binds more than flesh. It binds spirit. When the storm ends, you may walk away, but the bond will remain. You will feel it. You will hear my voice even in your dreams." Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to deny it, but deep inside something stirred, a strange pull he could not explain. He met her eyes, glowing like blue flames. "What happens if I break it? What happens if I walk away?" Her face grew solemn. "To break a bond is to break a soul. The fire will burn you from within. It will not kill you quickly, but it will leave you hollow, empty until death comes." The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan's breath came faster. The truth she spoke was terrifying, not just because of the curse, but because of the choice it forced upon him. Lyra turned her gaze away. Her voice was heavy with sorrow. "I did not choose this either. I never meant for a human to be bound. But the storm gave us no choice. The crystal does not lie. It chose for us." Ethan felt anger rise. "So I'm trapped? Is that what you're saying? My life isn't mine anymore." She flinched at his harsh tone. Her shoulders shook. "No, it is not a trap. It is a joining. Together we are stronger. Alone we would die." Ethan stood, pacing the cave, his breath fogged in the cold air. His heart battled between fear and something else, something that whispered maybe this was not a curse, maybe it was fate. He clenched his fists. "I don't even know you," Lyra's voice cracked. "Then know me, Ethan. I am the last of my kin. My people were hunted, scattered. I fled into this storm to escape. I have carried this crystal for years. Alone, waiting, hoping, and now—" She stopped, her throat tight with emotion. "Now the fire has chosen you." Ethan froze. Her confession cut deeper than the cold. He turned, looking at her small form, fragile yet strong. The scars on her skin told her story better than words. She had lost everything, yet she still fought to live for the first time. Ethan saw not just an alien girl, but someone who carried a pain like his own. Someone who had also lost home, family, and trust. He stepped closer, his voice quieter now. "Lyra, I don't know what this bond means for me, but I know one thing. Last night, if you weren't here, I'd be dead." Her eyes glistened, a single tear catching the glow of the crystal. She whispered, "And if you were not here, I would have given up. The storm would have taken me." "So yes, Ethan, truth is revealed. We are bound, whether by fate or by fire." The storm howled, but inside the cave the silence was different now. Not cold, not empty. It was full of something fragile yet powerful. Hook ending. Ethan sat beside her once more, his voice steady but unsure. "Then we face what comes together. Lyra, but if destiny has changed, what waits for us outside this storm?" The storm began to fade with the slow crawl of dawn. The howling winds outside grew weaker, the snow less violent. For the first time since the night began, Ethan could see faint light breaking through the cave mouth. He exhaled slowly, his breath no longer rising in panicked clouds. Lyra sat with the crystal still glowing in her lap. Her eyes followed the storm's retreat with unease. She did not look relieved, instead her face carried a shadow of fear. Ethan noticed it and asked quietly, "The storm is ending, isn't that good?" Lyra shook her head. "When the storm ends, the bond is sealed. There will be no undoing it after this morning." Ethan's chest tightened. He turned away, looking at the brightening snow. He had thought survival was the only fight. But now another weight pressed on him. His freedom, his future, his very life, tied to someone he had just met. He rubbed his hands together. What if I walk away? What if I just leave this cave when the storm clears? Lyra's eyes lowered, her voice soft but steady. Then the bond breaks, and it will not only destroy me, it will destroy you too. Your soul will hollow. Your fire will fade. Her words echoed in his mind. He felt anger stir. So I have no choice? My life doesn't belong to me anymore. Lyra flinched. Her shoulders curled as if his words struck her deeper than any blade. She whispered, I never wanted this. Ethan, I did not seek you. I did not call you. But the fire does not care what we want. It only binds what it believes must survive together. Ethan paced across the cave, his boots crunching against the frozen floor. His heart was torn. One part of him screamed to leave, to keep his freedom, to stay the lone traveler he had always been. But another part whispered of last night, of her trembling hands, of her small voice whispering against the storm, and of the strange warmth that had grown between them. Lyra hugged the crystal tighter, her silver hair falling over her face. Her voice broke the silence. I am afraid too, human, afraid you will leave. Afraid the bond will kill us both, afraid because, for the first time in years, I do not feel alone, and I do not want to lose that. Her confession hit Ethan like a blade. He stopped pacing. He looked at her, this girl who had lost everything, who had scars on her skin and sorrow in her eyes, and he realized something. He was afraid too, not of the bond, but of what it meant to care, to belong. He knelt down across from her, his voice low. Lyra, I've spent years on my own. I thought it was safer that way. No ties, no bonds, no promises, but last night, for the first time, I wasn't just fighting to stay alive. I was fighting for someone else, and that scared me more than the night hunter. Her eyes lifted, shimmering blue with both hope and fear. Then what will you choose, Ethan? The question hung heavy in the cave. The storm outside grew quieter, the silence inside louder. Ethan felt the weight of the moment. This was not just about survival anymore. This was about destiny. He closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered the warmth of her shoulder, the sound of her whisper, the way she had stood beside him when the beast attacked. He thought of the emptiness of his lonely path before this night, and how different it felt now. When he opened his eyes, they were steady. I choose to stay, he said, his words firm, not because I am forced, but because I want to. Lyra's lips parted, her eyes widened for the first time. Tears shimmered down her cheeks, not from fear, but from relief. She whispered, Then the bond is true, and we will face whatever comes together. Ethan reached out, placing his hand over hers where she held the crystal. The glow surged brighter, filling the cave with warm light. It felt alive, as if it recognized his choice. His chest no longer felt heavy. Instead, it burned with something powerful. The storm outside finally broke. The wind stilled, the snow settled. The frozen world lay quiet, but inside the cave, fire burned brighter than ever. Two lives, once separate, now tied by destiny. Ethan looked toward the cave entrance, his hand still resting over hers. Then when we step out of here, everything changes. Lyra nodded, her voice trembling but strong. Yes, Ethan, by fire and by choice, our lives are one, hook ending. As they stood together at the cave mouth, the storm gone, Ethan saw shadows moving in the snow below, shapes not of beasts, but of other beings waiting, watching, and he realized their trials were only beginning. The storm was gone, the air outside the cave was still cold, but the violent winds had died. Snow stretched in every direction, glowing under the pale morning sun. Ethan stepped to the cave mouth, his boots sinking into the fresh powder. Beside him, Lyra held the fire crystal, its glow dimmer now, as if resting. But the silence of the world did not last. Ethan's eyes narrowed when he saw movement below. Figures in the snow, cloaked in dark shapes. Their outlines were sharp. Their steps precise. They were not beasts. They were people, aliens like Lyra. Lyra's breath caught, her body stiffened. Her glowing eyes widened with both recognition and dread. Ethan glanced at her. "You know them?" She nodded slowly, her voice shaking. "Hunters. They come for me." Ethan tightened his grip on his knife. The night hunter was nothing compared to this. These were intelligent, trained, and armed. He looked at Lyra, her hands trembling around the crystal. "Why are they after you?" Her lips parted, her voice heavy with shame. "Because I carry this, the fire crystal. My people were destroyed, my clan hunted, they believe I stole it. They say it belongs to them, but without it, I would have died long ago." Ethan's chest tightened. He understood now. She was not only alone, she was chased, hunted and marked, and now, because of the bond, he was part of her fight too. The hunters spotted them. Their voices echoed across the snow, harsh and sharp. Ethan could not understand the words, but the meaning was clear. They were demanding Lyra's surrender. Lyra's face paled. She clutched the crystal tighter. Her voice broke. "If they take me, they will kill me. If they take the crystal, the bond breaks, you will suffer too." Ethan looked at her, then at the hunters below. His heart raced. This was the choice again, freedom or bond. His life alone or his life tied with hers. But the decision was already made in his chest. He whispered firmly, "We face them together?" Lyra's eyes glistened for a moment. Fear and hope collided in her gaze. She nodded. Together, the hunters climbed toward the cave, weapons glowing with strange light. Ethan stood at the entrance, his knife ready though it looked small against their power. Lyra raised her crystal, its glow flaring brighter as if fueled by her will. The first hunter stepped forward, shouting, his weapon aimed at Lyra. Ethan felt anger surge. He moved without thinking. Blocking the path, his voice rang out, "You'll have to go through me first." The alien did not understand his words, but his stance spoke louder. The hunter snarled and raised his weapon. A flash of light burst forward, but Lyra lifted the crystal. A shield of fire energy flared, blocking the strike. The cave shook with the impact. Snow and stone rained down. Ethan staggered but did not fall. Lyra's face twisted with effort as she held the shield. "I cannot hold long," she cried. Ethan's mind raced. He looked at the narrow entrance. He realized the cave itself was their ally. "We make them come one by one," he shouted. The hunters advanced, but the narrow mouth forced them to step in line. The first lunged forward, weapon raised. Ethan slashed with his knife, striking the arm. The alien roared. Dropping the weapon, Lyra's crystal flared, sending a burst of fire that forced the attacker back into the snow. Another charged, but Ethan ducked low, tackling the figure against the stone. They struggled in the snow, fists and claws striking. Ethan gritted his teeth, fighting with raw strength. He twisted, pushing the hunter outside where the storm's cold still lingered. Lyra stood behind him, her crystal glowing hotter. Beams of light bursting outward. Each strike drained her, but she did not stop. She fought not just for herself, but for him. The last hunter raised a larger weapon, charging a blast. Ethan's heart pounded. He had no time. He threw himself in front of Lyra, ready to take the strike, but Lyra screamed his name. The crystal exploded with light, wrapping around them both like a shield. The blast hit, but instead of burning them, it rebounded, striking the hunter with devastating force. The figure fell into the snow unmoving. Silence returned. The hunters lay scattered, defeated. The snow around them burned with strange marks. Ethan dropped to his knees, his chest heaving. Lyra staggered, nearly falling, but Ethan caught her, holding her close. She whispered weakly, "Why did you stand in front of me?" Ethan looked into her glowing eyes, his voice steady. "Because you're not alone anymore, and neither am I." Tears slipped down her cheeks. Her hands clutched his arm. Her voice trembled. "Then it is true, Ethan, by fire, by fight, by choice. Our destiny is forever." He held her tighter. The storm was gone, the hunters defeated, the bond sealed. Ethan looked at the vast white horizon, unsure of what future awaited them, but certain of one truth. He was no longer walking it alone. Hook ending, far away. Beyond the mountains, a new storm brewed, not of snow, but of war. The bond between a lone human and an alien girl would soon shake the galaxy.